966.
We are speaking now with Dr. Basma Al Buhairan, Managing Director of the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution of Saudi Arabia, part of the World Economic Forum's global network of C4IR centers. The center supports Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 by being a platform for public-private, multi-stakeholder collaboration to maximize technological benefits to society and minimize the risks associated with 4IR tech in the kingdom. Prior to this role, Dr. Basma was a key advisor and part of the founding team of the Research Development Innovation Authority of Saudi Arabia. She served as Chief Business Development and Events Management Officer at the National Events Center of Saudi Arabia. She also served in various high-level roles at Saudi Arabia's Ministry of Investment and has deep experience setting up greenfield healthcare facilities and operations in Saudi Arabia. And there are several impressive examples of this on her resume. She also has expertise in healthcare transformation, education, and investment development. Dr. Basma, welcome onto the 966. Thanks for joining us.
So thank you, Lucian and Richard. It's an honor and pleasure to be with you both here this evening, I guess, where I am, and probably afternoon where you are. Just a point of correction, I am still an advisor. I'm part of the founding team at the Research Development Innovation Authority. So I'm doing two roles at the same time.
Well, that was a tremendous introduction, and we can actually stop right now. That's an episode.
Yeah, sorry. That's it. Thanks for joining us.
No, because it was so impressive, not because it was so long. But so Basma, I always avoid saying old friend, but I always consider an old friend, someone we've known a long time, really enjoyed and been impressed by, and has been a joy to work with whenever possible. We got to visit in Riyadh recently when Lucian and I were there. It was tremendous. Thank you. And there's so many places to begin, but let's start with let's talk with a current, because we want to get to your personal story because it's an interesting one. But let's start with the broad. Let's start with your RDIA, Research Development Innovation Authority. I think that's properly, and then we'll move into your for C4IR responsibility. A C4IR, Center for Fourth Industrial Revolution. So if we can, that's the opening framework, and we'll take it from there because I think it'll go many places.
Wonderful. So thank you, Richard. You are an old friend. We've known each other for several years, and I think we first met when I was at SAGIA. Yeah. And I'm sure we'll talk about that later, later in the show. So the Research Development and Innovation Authority is a new entity that was set up or announced, let's say, in 2021, specifically June 2021. And by its acronym, it is Research Development and Innovation. It's an authority that focuses on that specifically. So the authority is equivalent to the NSF of what you have in the United States. And so the Research Development Innovation Authority was established to act as an enabler, a legislator, a regulator, to develop missions, flagship projects, to provide funding, for research, for basic research, applied research, etc., to also oversee the research development innovation ecosystem, to monitor, its performance, keep track of what's going on in the innovation ecosystem, and very importantly, to empower, facilitate, enhance, and uplift the entire innovation ecosystem in the kingdom. So research, development, and innovation, as I'm sure you're aware, is an imperative for any nation, right? It drives economic growth. And so what the kingdom has done as part of, Vision 2030, and in making sure that we move towards a knowledge-based and innovation-based economy, we've restructured our RDI governance. And with the restructuring, a Supreme Committee, an RDI Supreme Committee was established, and this is spearheaded, chaired by the Crown Prince and the Prime Minister, His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And the Research Development Innovation Authority was established, or was born. And we all know that RDI is an economic driver to drive the economic growth of any nation. It creates resilience, and it also solves challenges, existential challenges, as just one, example. And it will also enable us to distinguish those who are leaders from laggers. And so it is an imperative for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to also proactively address societal, economic, and national security risks. And sectors are being disrupted, every day by innovation. And we have a lot of, mega and giga projects that are ongoing, and they require innovation and innovation engine. Back in 2022, I think it was in July 2022, if I'm not mistaken, our Crown Prince and Prime Minister, His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman, announced the 4 national priorities that the kingdom is going to focus on when it comes to research, development, and innovation. And these 4 areas essentially include health and wellness, sustainability and essential needs, energy and industry, and economies of the future. Now, it was also announced that by the Crown Prince, the Prime Minister, that research, development, and innovation, that the kingdom, is very ambitious when it comes to research, development, and innovation, and that we are going to become a global leader in RDI with an annual investment that's equivalent to 2.5% of GDP in 2040. We will also create very high value jobs in the area of science and technology. So I think, I just wanted to sort of set the context at a high level and just to kind of explain, to you and to our listeners, why is RDI important to the kingdom, and how does that really link to Vision 2030?
And you're an advisor at RDIA.
Correct.
Correct? Yeah.
Correct.
So that's sort of one aspect of your, how you manage your day, which I imagine is very difficult. You are managing director of C4IR, Center for Fourth Industrial Revolution. I'm going to struggle with that all day, Lucian. And so can you tell us about this? Because this is a fascinating tie-up with the World Economic Forum.
Sure, absolutely. So maybe let's go back in time a bit, just a brief bit of history, to also put things into perspective. So we had the first industrial revolution back in the 1700s, and that was when we had, machineries and steam engines. Okay. The second industrial revolution came about in the 1800s, and that was when we had mass production, assembly lines, electrical energy. The third industrial revolution came about in the 1960s, and that was when we had automation, computers, and electronics. And now we're at the fourth industrial revolution, and the fourth industrial revolution focuses on emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, quantum, robotics, autonomous mobility, and so on. So the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution in Saudi Arabia, and we call it C4IR KSA, an abbreviated name, because when I just kind of feel like when I say the entire name, it's a mouthful to actually say. So C4IR KSA is part of the World Economic Forum Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution Network that actually connects more than 15 centers around the globe. And the number keeps, increasing very quickly, actually. And why is this important? This is important because it actually helps stakeholders to harness the potential of emerging technologies, such as the ones that I mentioned a few minutes ago. And by ensuring that there is equity in their utilization, and that there's also a human-centered transformation of industries, economies, and societies globally. So our center, C4IR KSA, was actually launched in 2020 as a strategic and a very future-oriented do tank to enhance the applications of 4IR technologies and to shape their responsible adoption and economic diversification and sustainable development in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in alignment with the goals of Vision 2030. And so the alignment with Vision 2030 is actually evident in the various activities that we undertake at the center, and they're guided by 4 basic principles. The first principle is promoting innovation by generating actionable knowledge on new and developing technologies, including the value they create and the potential risks that they may actually pose. The second principle is catalyzing industry transformation. And how do we do this? We do this by connecting industries and sectors to drive the responsible uptake of disruptive technologies and business models. And the third is improving governance by driving responsible governance to ensure that technologies are safe, ethical, reliable, and scalable to solve not only local challenges, but also global challenges. So any project we undertake has to be sort of scalable or implementable globally across the world. And the fourth objective is in relation to capacity building or talent development. And this is by preparing our future forward national talent with hands-on international experience to develop the key 4IR governance skills through the center's fellowship opportunities that we offer. So I guess in a nutshell or in summary, the center is playing a pivotal role in shaping and advancing the implementation in advancing the implementation of Vision 2030 programs by fostering solutions based on collaborations and partnerships that we create amongst the various stakeholders within the ecosystem. And these stakeholders include government, private sector, academic and research institutions, as well as civil society, to implement progressive policies that would allow the harnessing of 4IR technologies.
Fascinating. And what was the first one, Basma? Was it the first one of the four group? Was it risks?
It was promoting innovation.
All right, promoting innovation. So it just so our listeners know, this World Economic Forum network, of which Riyadh is part of, is vast. I mean, you said 16 centers, and that's from Malaysia to San Francisco, from Norway to South Africa, and then you've got offices, and Saudi Arabia is in the region with, I guess there's one in the UAE and Israel as well. But it's really an interesting network. And this was sort of all started in 2016 or thereabouts. I guess just again as background, the fourth industrial revolution concept, was sort of popularized by Klaus Schwab with the World Economic Forum with his book Fourth Industrial Revolution in 2016. So has all this come about sort of almost in lockstep with Vision 2030? I mean, Vision 2030 was announced in 2016.
Yeah, so let me just a point to clarify this. Our engagement in relation to the World Economic Forum is, although we're based in Riyadh, but it's for KSA as a whole. So the Center for Fourth Industrial Revolution, KSA, works with the entire nation. We're here, we're here to help or to support KSA. Let's say our center's role is to help KSA in harnessing the adoption of emerging technologies by also ensuring that they're ethical and safe to use, and there's responsible adoption, and that nobody's left behind, and there's inclusivity, right? So everything that the World Economic Forum speaks to and talks about. So I think that's important to note. But we are based in Riyadh. Now, you're absolutely right. The term or the phrasing was coined by Klaus Schwab back in 2016. Vision 2030 was announced in 2016. I can't really speak to the history of, maybe it was just coincidence. I don't know.
I think it was.
It was probably coincidence. It's like you've got all your ducks in a row, right? And it just, things just sort of maybe worked out very well. I've only been leading the center since June or July of 2022. So I've only been with the center for over a year, I guess 17, 18 months or so, although it seems a bit longer than that. So I can't really speak to what happened, prior to that. I can talk to what's been happening since I've been, in this role, and and my engagement with the World, Economic Forum.
No, I'm sure it was just completely coincidental, but I am fascinated, and this is one of the reasons we were so excited to talk with you, is because developing countries like Saudi Arabia is coming along and is growing, is now becoming middle power. And we saw it last year and had $1 trillion economy. So it's moving along. It's like, what is it? 17th largest GDP in the world. So it's a significant economy, but it also has an opportunity here with maybe fewer legacy systems to leapfrog. And when you run down the list, or the standard list of 4IR technologies, quantum computing, 5G, blockchain, cloud computing, Internet of Things, biotechnology, robotics, computer technology, I mean, on and on, AI in particular, AI runs through it. these are things that Saudi Arabia in this moment are trying to leverage to move to a new economy, diversify, and give new opportunities to their population. And it is really fortunate timing in many ways that, one, these technologies are out there. Two, Saudi Arabia, as leadership, has decided we're going to move very aggressively and and responsibly forward in this path. And let's find a way to move it all together. And some of that all comes together in your office. Can you talk a little bit about how Saudi Arabia is using these technologies to further Vision 2030?
Yeah, sure. So they're using them in different ways, and maybe I can put some color to this through, the different projects that we have. Now, we are the only center amongst the more than 15 centers that the forum has, and they are around the world, that has signed up to or is working on 6 projects. Okay. So we're a very, very active center. So the projects that we have include the following. One is IIoT for SMEs, and that is the industrial Internet of Things for SMEs. And in that project, we're focusing on or working on how do we enable SMEs to digitally transform, right? To get them to adopt industrial Internet of Things, because it'll make them more competitive, it'll make them more productive, and it'll be more efficient.
So I'm going to interrupt real quickly because you're clearly very conversant with the Washington scene, because the acronyms. IIoT, I know Internet of Things, but for our listeners, IIoT for SMEs, go ahead and work to break that down for us.
So industrial Internet for small and medium enterprises.
Beautiful.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Because I only knew it because we talked about it when we were in Riyadh. But if it weren't for that, I'd be wondering, what did she just say?
Okay, so apologies for that.
No.
So that project we're working with. So for every project, we have a project community, and every project community is comprised of government, private sector, and with private sector in particular, small and medium enterprises, academic research organizations, and civil society. Okay, so for this particular project, our main stakeholder is the Ministry of Industry and Mineral Resources, right? So they're really in the driving seat. We do everything to facilitate, to support. We do some of the heavy lifting. We scope out the project, but all in alignment, all in collaboration with them, right? Because you can't do it alone, and there are already efforts that are underway across the different entities, the different ministries that involve emerging technologies. So we're here to sort of to support them, because we have the ability to also try things out, right? Where we can also suggest things like having like a regulatory sandbox, so to speak, right? Things where you can try things out in. So with the industrial Internet of Things for small and medium enterprises, that project, again, as I mentioned, is focused on how do we get the SMEs to digitally transform? How do we do this? The government has already developed different sort of programs for small and medium enterprises to help them move towards this digital transformation. We've developed a publication, a community paper many months ago that talks about these case studies, right? And we've presented that. That's been presented to the global audience as well, for others to know what we're doing in KSA. And what is it that we're doing to help SMEs digitally transform? We just recently published a C4IR use case guide that has 26 use cases that focus on the industrial Internet of Things for SMEs. And the purpose of that guide, again, is to create awareness, to raise the knowledge and the awareness that these SMEs have, to enable them to digitally transform. And these use cases were, they were put together in this guidebook from the different stakeholders and partners that we're working with that are part of this project. What is the end result of this project going to be? The end result of this project is going to be to suggest a regulatory framework or a framework that encompasses several parameters or elements that ought to be considered, or for government as they move forward in developing policies to enable the digital transformation of small and medium enterprises. So we don't develop policies per se, but we co-create and we co-design with our stakeholders. What would this regulatory framework look like? What are the different elements that it should encompass for when a policy will be developed or a legislation would be developed, that it would take that framework into consideration. And then that framework could be scalable, could be looked at by other nations. So in our project for the Industrial Internet of Things for SMEs, we are anchored with C4IR Brazil. So what does that mean? This means that this project was already started by Brazil, by that C4IR center. They have learnings that we've learned from. They've developed a framework. They've done it in, I think it was 1 or 2 sectors. We're looking at IIoT across many sectors, not just one sector. So obviously, the context is different, but there are learnings that we've learned from. And so we're building on that. So I hope that just sort of makes sense. That gives, more color. In another project that we have, and this is still under scope, it's an early stage project. We're looking at the adoption of heavy lifting drones. And a heavy lifting drone is anything that that is over 25 kgs. It carries anything over 25 kg. So what regulations do we need to enable the adoption of heavy lifting drones, in KSA? And so this project aims to actually propose a regulatory framework for the adoption and utilization of heavy lifting drone delivery, and to have that be integrated into, the national airspace. And we've seen that there is a lot of interest from different companies that are in Saudi Arabia. A couple are, working in NEOM, and that's public knowledge, that, want to be engaged in this area. But we need to enable them. And that's where the role of C4IR comes in, is to work with our stakeholders in co-creating, co-designing these regulatory frameworks. And because we're part of the World Economic Forum, a broader network, and the Center of Industrial Revolution network, we're able to also gather best practices and global learnings from the rest of the network.
And that was 2. You said there were.
There's 6. I just gave you 2, so we have another. Yeah.
No, you can actually, you can, the remaining 4 you can run through, because it's fascinating. Because I think Lucia and I probably both had the same thought. We had, I was thinking of our friend Abdul Hadi Azuz, who Muhammad Ghazi. We did an episode. These guys do drones, and he has a beast of a drone. It clearly is heavy lifting, but he probably knows the stuff inside out. Anyway, that's an aside.
So the other one is called AI for AI, which is artificial intelligence for agricultural innovation. Now, it's not just looking at or using artificial intelligence for agricultural innovation. It's also using other technologies such as the Industrial Internet of Things and drones. And this project is anchored with C4IR India. So they've done something in the agricultural sector, looking at the small farmers. They've developed a framework. So we're taking those learnings. So what are we doing in our project? We are specifically focusing on the palm subsector within the agricultural domain. We're looking at so our palm trees, which are very important to KSA, they're part of our heritage, get infected with something called weevil disease. So they get infected with some sort of a pest. And so in this project, we're looking at how do we prevent weevil disease from occurring, or predicting it early on, and using heavy lifting drones to carry pesticides to spray, right, the palm trees. The IIoT sensor, it would be used for the detection part. And we're also using satellite imagery as well. The other project is in smart cities, and there are different things going on in the area of smart cities in the kingdom. And there, what we're trying to do is we're looking at establishing a community to collaborate around sustainable urban transformation, right? And looking at developing a framework for a digital twins. The other project is on autonomous mobility. And with autonomous mobility, because it is a nascent area for, for the kingdom, and there are very strong targets within the transportation sector, because the transportation sector in the kingdom actually aims to become a global leader in autonomous and electric vehicle adoption. And so it's important for us to understand whether the current mobility regulations framework actually would allow or enable, would create that enabling environment for that to happen, and to also create lasting impact at scale. And the Transport General Authority authority has actually a specific sector a target for land transport, and it's quite ambitious, where they aim to transition 25% of goods on transport vehicles into AV by 2030. So that's another project that we have. And the last one, which is a new one, and we're scoping that project out right now, that is going to be focused on quantum. So it's still under scoping. I'm not sure what exactly we're going to be focusing on there. It'll be more clear, I think, for us in the next several weeks. So those are the 6 projects that we have, and they're all very much aligned to everything that we're doing within KSA, and obviously with Vision 2030. And again, everything that we do, we co-create, we co-design with our stakeholders. We don't do it alone. We collaborate, we partner, and we share. And we make sure that there's buy-in and there's consensus from everyone who we're working with.
So it sort of seems like, if that's the sort of the MO for you guys, is bringing together these innovators, experts, leaders, then events for you are specific, especially, I should say, impactful. You just concluded about 2 months ago, I believe, the second Saudi Forum for the Industrial Revolution. And I saw, neither of us were there, but we saw some photos online with you and His Excellency Bandar Al Krayaf, and you mentioned the Ministry of Industry and Mineral Resources earlier. How do you build on those events year to year? And tell us a little bit about that event specifically.
So that was the second event for the center. The first event, I believe, was a hybrid, physical and virtual. This was completely a physical event, but we had actually, believe it or not, more, I think, attendees online than we did in person. And the theme of that was fostering innovation through collective impact for sustainable development. And that event was in collaboration with the World Economic Forum. So it was co-branded with them. And it was a successful event. So the way we designed that event was we had sessions that focused on the different sort of projects that we're working on, the different themes that we have. And then we had 2, I think it was functional sessions. And what we've done is we developed a report, a summary report from that forum. And those learnings that have come from that report, we will use those learnings to help us in the projects that we have as applicable, right? And if they apply to the projects that we have. And because it's important for us to share our knowledge with everyone, we've actually put our report online. It's on our website. So anybody, can have access to it. We will have another forum. We haven't decided when we're going to have the next forum, but the next forum will be a level, it will be a level higher than what we had now. And obviously there were, learnings from that, from the forum that we had, in terms of, what should the next sort of forum look like? What should we bring into the forum? Should we have, innovators, for instance, or an exhibit, or, should we bring in, different sort of sessions? We haven't discussed any of these things yet. That is yet to come. But I think very importantly, what helped us, I think what was fruitful about this forum is that it brought together different stakeholders to together. It also created more awareness about the center because not many people really knew about the center. So visibility is important for the center, but it's also important for the center to have a value proposition, right? For people to also understand, you know, what value would we have in working or engaging with the center. So I think the forum also helped, you know, in that. But are we there yet? Are we there yet? Obviously not. We still, you know, have a lot more to do. But I think the conversations that were had on the panels, in the fireside chats, just with individuals networking, were very interesting, and we received positive comments. And we also, from that forum, we had people reach out to us, wanting to engage with us. Which, you know, was very complimentary, obviously, and we've started on, you know, these engagements.
And some of those partners, and you discussed the ministry earlier, but you're working with CAST and KAUST, among others, right?
We work with many. So the center has a board. The board is chaired by His Excellency, the President of CAST, Dr. Munir Dasuki. And membership on the board is comprised of government and private sector academic research institutes. So, for example, Sadaya, NEOM, Aramco, STC, KFU, King Fahd University for Petroleum and Minerals, King Saud University, King Abdulaziz University for Science and Technology. Who else? Sadaya, which is the Saudi Data Artificial Intelligence Authority. I'm not sure if I've left anybody. Oh, Ministry of Economy and Planning, Ministry of Communications, Information and Technology. These are our board members. I hope I haven't left any entity out. But besides those entities, and I apologize if I've left anybody out.
That's
but
quite a lineup, though.
That
was like
that's
like
a who's who.
An Oscar, you know, accepting an Oscar. You know, you have to make sure you don't leave anybody out.
Yeah, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So, but in addition to those entities, we work with many people. I mean, you know, the private sector is important to us, you know, like small and medium enterprises. You know, we're working with a company called Eotic, a French company. We're working with others who are much larger. We're working with the royal commissions, different royal commissions. So again, the list is really long. You know, don't have them. I don't know them all top of mind. So we work, and within government, we work with the regulators as well. The regulators are very important.
So it's got to be exciting for you, Basma. I mean, you know, when you did just in that short discussion, you're dealing with centers in Brazil and India. You know, the number of topics that you just discuss: IoT, heavy lifting drones, AI for agricultural innovation, smart cities, autonomous transportation, and a quantum, extraordinary stuff. And here you are with a degree in public health. So you need to tell us how this happened. You know, we met you later when you were with the Ministry of Investment in Sagia. But the distance between is pretty huge. But I think, if you can share with us how that happened, it probably will make sense.
So I wish I knew the answer to that, Richard. Maybe we can figure out this answer now in the next few minutes during this conversation. So, when His Excellency Dr. Munir asked me to take on this role, I was already at the Research Development Innovation Authority. He asked to see me, was telling me about the center and asked me to take on this role. And honestly, I was thinking, I'm not really sure what His Excellency is thinking. I know nothing about emerging technologies. Right. I'm a very candid person. I say what I know and I say what I don't know. Okay. I don't know if that's good or bad, but anyways, that's the sort of person I am. And so I was, struggling with it for a while, thinking about it. And I'm like, not really sure. But then I'm one that does not say no to a challenge. That has always been, I don't know if it's a strength or a weakness, it could be either or. But I do not say no to a challenge. And I accepted. And I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, right? Although, when I took on this role back in 2022, June or July 2022, I've got more than 27 years of experience. And so, but still, I don't know if it's me being a woman, or it's just me the way I am. I was, you know, asking myself and questioning myself, did I make the right decision? And what in the world am I going to be doing? Right. These were thoughts that were going through my mind. And I'm probably maybe exposing my vulnerability, in saying this, but I'm being quite candid.
Sure.
And I've actually enjoyed it, right? I don't need to have the sectoral deep expertise knowledge in emerging technologies, but I have other skills that I bring to the table, and I'm quite versatile, quite agile, quite adaptable. And I've acquired all these skills over the years. But what brought me from public health to where I am, I really don't know. I've never planned out my career. Although I'm a person who, is structured, focused, doing a PhD, you had to have a plan. I had a plan, but I've never planned out my career. It sort of happened, I guess, I don't know, maybe by chance, by mere luck, or I happened to be at the right place at the right time. I don't really know. And I was a medical technologist many, many years ago. That was what I did my undergrad degree in. And then I moved into leadership and management. I was operations administrator for the Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine. And I did that for several years. And then I commissioned laboratories for National Guard Hospital many years ago. But I continued in the sort of path of healthcare delivery, right? Moving up the ladder. And I moved up the ladder quite quickly because my first leadership role, when I led the Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine, that was in 2000 at the National Guard Hospital. And I continued, and then I moved into more of healthcare and life sciences investment. That was when I went to SAGIA, and I was leading healthcare and life sciences, and I became an advisor to His Excellency, the governor of SAGIA, who was Brahim Al-Umar at that time. And then we became a ministry, and I was an advisor to His Excellency, Minister Khalid Al-Falih, who's the current Minister of Investment. So I was in health throughout, up until I think I left the Ministry of Investment in 2021. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I took a year, not off, but I was working. But I worked in events. Now you're probably going to ask me, health, events? There's no correlation.
No, it does though.
There is no correlation, but again, I think it goes back to my skill set, the things that I've acquired in terms of, leadership, in terms of being versatile, in terms of being agile, and just me being adaptable and open and receptive to doing new things. Again, there are challenges, right? Events. I was at the National Events Center. I was the head of events management and the head of business development. It's very interesting. I had interesting clients like WWE, right? And I, had other interesting, clients who I worked with as well. And I think people who know me really well will say, Basma, events, there's something wrong, there's just something not right about this picture. But I enjoyed it nonetheless, right? And then I joined the Research Development Innovation Authority thereafter. But I think, when I reflect on my childhood, I was always a person that wanted to stretch my limits. And to me, the impossible was possible. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. So I grew up watching The Bionic Woman and Wonder Woman. Okay. And the Bionic Woman, has superpowers and she can jump and she can not fly, but she can jump really high. She can, she takes out the bad guys and stuff. So I used to, as a child, I grew up in California, um, used to stand at the stairs of our kind of our family room. So there were steps that would take you to the garden, to the backyard. And I would stand at the top and I would remember, raising my arms up and down exactly like Bionic Woman, right?
Is that
Lindsay Wagner. Lindsay
Lindsay
Wagner, I
Wagner?
think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I remember her name. Okay. And I would jump down and I would think, wow, I'm Bionic Woman. And then I do the same thing. I'd be at the bottom of the steps and I'd, lift my arms, and I do exactly what she would do. And I would jump back up. So
Would you make the sound effect?
no, I didn't make the sound effect. And then Wonder Woman, I twirl around thinking,
Yeah.
I'm going to get into my costume like Wonder Woman. Obviously, I didn't get into my costume like Wonder
Right.
Woman, right? But, as a child, I don't think I realized that that was part of, you know, uh, 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 those were characteristics that there were, I think, traits or attributes that I had as an individual in terms of being bold, being ambitious, right? Nothing is impossible. And I only realized that as an adult, obviously, as a child, to me, I was just I guess, having fun somehow, pretending that I was Wonder Woman and Bionic Woman. So I think a lot of, things that I've done in my career and they've been out of my comfort zone, although, I tend to be more of an introvert. I'm not really an extrovert, and sometimes I can be, in the middle. But I've never, said no to challenges, and I guess that's just part of who I am.
Briefly, you in that long in recounting your many experiences, you've neglected to mention your illustrious broadcasting career.
So yes, I was on Saudi TV. This was in 1996. Saudi TV Channel 2. Um, I was the first Saudi woman TV newscaster at that time. I started off opening up the channel. So if you remember, our weekends were Thursdays and Fridays.
Yeah.
So on the weekend, on Thursday, I think it was, I would spend, I don't know how many hours at the television station, Saudi television station. But I would open the channel and do news and brief. It was all live. And then I just became the news. I used to do the news in English, the 8 p.m. news. I think it was twice or three times a week. I can't remember now how many times a week. And my last appearance was just before I went to Brown to do my first master's, which was in January 1997. But it was just a hobby, I was never trained, just a hobby. But yes, that was many many light years ago.
Well,
That's amazing.
It is fun. So we had, Dr. Mahmoud Khan, who was CEO of the Global Health Span Summit, and you're familiar with that. We were there, and this is in parallel to you. He's so much more than an academic. He's a spokesman. He's a marketing guru. He's an engaging, personable, representative of the initiative. I mean, and likewise with you. I mean, what you're trying to do is so much more than emerging technologies. And the job couldn't be done by someone who was, for lack of a better word, just, fully immersed in only that.
Yeah.
I mean, the requirements in terms of policy development, management, events, coordination, engaging with people from all over the world, as well as people throughout many sectors. I mean, just look at your board. academic and institutions and ministries throughout the Saudi Arabia. So, if you look at it in that context, you're perfectly suited for this job.
Well, thank you, Richard. I mean, I enjoy what I do. I really do. I enjoy engaging with the national and the global community. I believe I'm a great spokesperson, or I'm a great ambassador, let's say, great ambassador for KSA and for what we're doing, in relation to Vision 2030. And it's just very exhilarating. I find I've always been a very I think dependable and responsible person, when it comes to work and career, and very motivated. I tend to motivate myself. I don't need, others to motivate me. And I think if you're committed to what you're doing and you have that dedication, and you get a kick out of it, and I guess I do, somehow you do get a kick out of it. But I think more importantly, I like to help others. And I've done that along, my career. And I think it's just nice when you hear someone, thanking you for something that you've done that you've actually forgotten about, you know. And I've had that, I think, countless times. But yeah, I think, the best is hopefully yet to come, for all of us.
Dr. Basma, one more question before we close here. So you mentioned that the center is in Riyadh. Where is it located in Riyadh? Is it in CAST, the CAST campus? And I asked because I visited a few weeks ago, and CAST looks like it has had a huge steroid injection right into it. There's a brand new huge building. They've got the garage that's now been set up. There's a whole new energy over there. I mean, where is that? Where's your office? Where is it? And is it in CAST? Because I know that that's sort of like a new hub for this stuff now.
So I love the description you used, a steroid injection, or that tall building. So it's a tall building, the Innovation Tower.
Okay, the Innovation Tower. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, we're in the Innovation Tower. So CACST has undergone a transformation. So it is a national lab and a science and technology park. Hence, we've got the garage, which is a deep tech incubator / accelerator. And in the Innovation Tower, there are companies, there are government entities, there's, us, the C4IR KSA, the Research Development Innovation Authority is also located in the Innovation Tower. So it's actually, CACST is also part of the International Association for Science Parks, IASP. They recently became a part of that. So we're there, 5th floor. That's where you'll find us. We have great space, great offices, because we are hosted at CACST. Hence, His Excellency Dr. Munir Al-Jasuki, President of CACST, is the chairman of our center, of our board.
Yeah, it's an impressive building. Really bright white, kind of has the California feel, which probably feels like home for you. Dr. Basma Al Buhairan, Managing Director, Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution of Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much for your time. This was a really wonderful discussion.
Thank you, Lucian. Thank you, Richard. Thank you again for having me. And I've enjoyed the hour or so that we spent together.